Webinars intended to provide you with an insight into what makes our programs great here at DHS, while also working to continue to foster our DHS athletic community as a whole. I'm Coach Flannery, Associate Athletic Director, and I'd like to thank Assistant Athletic Director Coach Tomlinson and Interim Athletic Director Gail Luer for making these webinars a reality. Before I introduce our speaker for today, I'd like to share something with you that I picked up from a virtual conference I attended this past weekend. The speaker that I had the pleasure to see was Derek Brooks, and Derek Brooks is a former Super Bowl winner and a Hall of Famer with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. His playing days may have ended a little before all of you really started watching the game, but I'd encourage you to look up his story and all the things he continues to do in his community to this day to make it a better place. He talked about a lot of different things during his presentation, but I'm going to share just one brief thing he said that jumped out at me. He said, if attitudes are contagious, is your attitude worth catching? So if attitudes are contagious, do you have an attitude that is worth catching? And what does that mean? To me, here's why it jumped out at me. To me, as I think about all of you as student athletes, it means we want your best effort and attitude while competing in contests, practices, doing your homework, taking a test, going to the store, going to get lunch, or helping out at your house. We aren't concerned about your talent. As we learned from Coach Friedlander last week, talent is something that we have and we're given. But if we can have an effort and an attitude that is worth spreading, it will bring the best out of you, and it will spread not only through your own home and particular team, but it'll spread through our DHS athletic community, and then ultimately, what a great thing to have that spread through the Deerfield community as a whole. So as you think about what you're spreading, make sure you're spreading something positive. Our speaker for today is a physics teacher at DHS and our head football coach. As an athlete, Coach Winiecki was an all-Catholic League punter and defensive back at Gordon and a 3-year letter winner at Winona State University. When we asked Coach Winiecki, what does it mean to him to be a warrior? He said, this is a place where relationships are first and foremost. And he's honored to be a member of a community that puts student athletes first and that strives to improve daily. Students and athletes first. When asked about his favorite memory here at Deerfield, he said there's too many to list, and he's blessed to have been able to be a part of and witness many accomplishments by many people over his time here. Coach Winiecki didn't begin his career here at Deerfield. He coached for a year at Winona State, 3 years at Oak Park River Forest, a year at Gordon Tech, and we've been fortunate to have him here at Deerfield now for 27 years, 5 years as an assistant coach and the last 22 as the head coach. During that time, he's won over 120 games. He's won 5 CSL titles. He's taken the Deerfield Warrior football program to the state playoffs 12 times, a 2003 quarterfinal appearance, and something we all remember from last year, the semifinal appearance here at Deerfield. It's our pleasure to introduce to you Coach Winiecki, who's going to be speaking to us today on the topic of obstacles equal opportunities. Coach, it is all yours.
It only took me a second to screw up the presentation. I was still muted, so thank you, Coach. It's an honor to be here, and all those numbers just say that I'm old, that I've just been around a long time, so it's a lot about compiling data and compiling numbers, but I appreciate it. And the thing that makes this place special is that it is the relationships. It is the time that we put together. And this opportunity that the athletic department has given us, it's a blessing. And I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful to have you people here. And kind of like I talked about, we had a clinic presentation last week. And one of the things we talked about, that if you can get one thing out of these 15, 20 minutes, kind of like you got one thing out of Coach Friedlander's last week, then the time is well spent. So I'm going to share my screen here. And we'll get going. Did everybody see, we see the screen okay? Can somebody give me a verbal? Because I lost my,
We got you, Coach. We see it.
thank you,
It's good, Coach.
thank you. How many times have you heard that 2020 sucks? It's been a terrible year. How many times have we heard that? We have a pandemic. We had a contentious election. We have social issues that were going on. And we talk about these obstacles that have gotten in the way of our preconceptions of what our life was supposed to be. Not to put it too bluntly, we need to get over it. We were just talking, Coach Lure and I were talking before this meeting about everything that's going on. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And we could talk about people that have done stuff during a pandemic. Isaac Newton, like Coach Flannery said, I teach physics. During a pandemic, he had to leave Cambridge. He went to his farm. What did he do with his time? Oh, nothing. He just came up with the theory of universal gravity, optics, came up with that during a pandemic. Shakespeare had to leave the Globe Theater, go out to the country. What did he do during that time? He wrote King Lear. I know that during this time, I've been doing a lot of reading. And one of the things I've been reading is Alive Time versus Dead Time. Robert Greene, and you can see he's an author. He studies human nature, he's a psychologist. And he talked about this idea of a lifetime or dead time, that what are you going to make your life? Is it going to be a lifetime or dead time? Are you just going to waste time away, let things just click away, that time? Or are you going to make something of it? And that's what we have to make our time right now. It has to be a lifetime. And you have a choice on how you're going to spend your life. Robert Greene talked about one of the more powerful sayings that he has. One of the most powerful things he says a human being could have is this Latin term, amor fati. Amor, you might recognize that, means love, fate, fate. Love, fate. If you cannot just deal with what's going on, but love fate, to be able to say, man, this is a great thing. I love this. I was expecting this. Thank you for coming. That will change your life if you say, I will have amor fati. In our football program, one thing we talk about a lot is that you can't change what you did in the past. But as your amor fati, how's that going to help your future self, your tomorrow self, your next week self, your next month, your next year? Is your future self going to thank you for what you did during this a lifetime? Or is your future self going to be upset at you for that you made this dead time? Because your perspective of any situation is going to drive your behavior. How you view the world, your perspective is going to determine how you act. How you think, I'd say, I think I'm a positive person. No, you have to look at the world in a positive way. And then after those thoughts, it's how you behave. It's how you act. One thing we have to understand, we're not getting a pass because of COVID. This is not, Amazon. We're going to say, you know what? I'm not happy with 2020. I'm going to send it back and Amazon's going to give me a year refund. No, it doesn't work that way. We don't get a pass. This year is this year. Whatever happens in the future is going to happen in the future. We don't get a pass. But the thing that we do is we get to just change our perspective a little bit. Instead of saying, I have to live through this, just change your words to, I get to live through this. We talked about in the football program, we get to be the first football program that's going to play football in this spring. We get to do that. We're blessed with that. And if you just change your perspective from I have to I get to, it'll change your whole view on the world. Now I'm going to show you a little bit this from Inky Johnson. I don't know if you're familiar with him. If you have a chance to look him up later, all these people I'm referencing, I think it'd be a great thing for you. Let's start.
I'm reminded of a story, right, about a father and a son, and it's amazing because at the foundation of what this story was, this father was trying to find a babysitter, right, for his son, and so he couldn't, and he had to take his son to a conference with him. And so he told his son, I'm going to just sit you in the back of the room. I'm going to go to this conference, and I know you probably want to enjoy it. And the son's sitting there, and a lady gets up to speak. And she's talking about impact. She's talking about service, talking about purpose. And the son loves it. After the conference, they get home that night. Son goes into the father's room and said, Dad, man, I really enjoyed that. Dad said, that's cool. He said, I want to do something to make a difference. Dad said, what do you got in mind? He said, can you get me a job at the local grocery store? Dad said, sure, that should be easy. What do you want to do? So I just want to bag groceries. I said, sure, no problem. Dad goes up, tell the people about it. They said, sure, no problem, bring him down. Son starts bagging groceries. 2 weeks in, he comes home to his father. He said, Dad, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. He said, but I want to do something to make a deeper impact. Dad said, man, yeah, I got it. Just when you bag their groceries, wave at them, tell them have a good day, that should work. The son said, no, I want to do something to make a deeper impact. Dad said, what do you have in mind? He said, I want to make note cards, and I want to put them in the bags. Can you help me make copies? Dad said, sure, man, I got your back. Son starts doing it. One day, the manager comes into the store. He goes upstairs to the team members. He said, why is everybody in line 8 in this little kid's line? He said, somebody get on the intercom, tell them we got 7, we got 6, and we got 5 open. They got on the intercom, they said, guys, we know everybody's in line 8, little Johnny's line. I want y'all to know we got 7, we got 6, and we got 5 open. Nobody moved. He said, go down to the floor and tell them. He ran down to the floor. Hey, guys, we see everybody's in little Johnny the baggage line. We got 7, we got 6, and we got 5 open. People said, we know. They said, we want to get his word of the day. They said it got so crazy, people started getting a stoplight away from the store. Didn't need groceries. They would go and get a loaf of bread and be in line, calling their friends like, man, you got to come here. You got to get this little kid's note card, right? And the thing that blew my mind was, here you had this kid that drove business to an institution, and it wasn't based upon a business strategy. It was based upon a heart and an intent that was geared in the right place, and it yielded a certain result. At the foundation of it was what? People. At the foundation of it, the X factor was how I treat people, how I value people. The product could take care of itself. At the foundation of it, it's this thing they say in football. It's not so much about the X's and the O's as it is about the Jimmies and the Joes. Meaning you can have whatever strategy you got. You could be the best coach in the world. You could be Nick Saban. But if you don't have a connection with the players and the people, the strategy that you have, it will never work. You can have all type of shoots. You can have the best people in the world. If you don't have a connection, it will never work. And so now when I see people, like I don't see them as just a James, a Allison, a Robert. When I see people and I connect with them, I'm like, that's not by coincidence. When I get offered the opportunity to do something, I'm like, man, I get an opportunity to do this. This is incredible. Like approaching it with the perspective of, I don't have to, I get to. And I'm a firm believer that perspective drives performance every day of the week. How a person view what they do will always affect how they do what they do. And so if I meet somebody and they say, oh man, I want to be rich, I'm like, cool, nothing wrong with that. But the true measure of your wealth is if you got it, then you lost it, then how much would you be worth?
Couple things out of that. First of all, we talked about that boy got inspired by a supposed bad thing, couldn't get a babysitter. Dad took him to the conference, changed people's lives. And then the other one too, it's not about the X's and the O's, it's about the Jimmies and the Joes. It's about relationships. We talked about this at the beginning about the great thing about Deerfield High School. It's about relationships, and it's about the perspective you have in those relationships.
I'm reminded of a story, right?
So we talk about our responses. Being a physics teacher, being a nerd, I'm big into equations. So one of them we talk about in our program is E plus R equals O. You know, what kind of variables are those? Well, the events in your life plus your responses are going to equal the outcomes. Where people get hung up is they want to control the events in their lives. They want to control the pandemic. They want to control the lockdown, that we're not together, that a season's been canceled. We have no control over that. What we have 100% control over is how we respond, here, between our ears. And the other thing that we kid ourselves is that we control the outcomes in our lives. We have some. We have a little bit of influence on the outcomes. But the better our responses, the more we can influence the outcomes. Again, not control, influence. The next one I think is super important. We talked about you have no control of the events in your life, but how you respond is another person's event. I'll say that again. How you respond is another person's event. And you need to look at outcomes as feedback. competitions, tests, relationships. The outcome from what you do is feedback. It's going to help you with your next response. That outcomes are just a moment in time. They're not your life. They're a moment in your life. And this really comes from Viktor Frankl, who was a psychologist, and he studied human nature. He was in Austria during the time in Nazi Germany, and he was put in a concentration camp. And he had everything taken from him. He had his clothes, he had his jewelry, he was separated from his family, his wife was killed. And he even knew that the Nazi guards could take his life. But he always wrote about this later, is that they never took my ability to choose. No matter what happened when he was in camps, his ability to respond was never taken from him. You talk about a positive response. You don't want to have a negative response. We talk about no BCD. It's funny, I kind of was busting my dad's chops on that a couple days ago about what BCD is. You want to have a bad response, you're going to blame, you're going to complain, you're going to defend. You don't want to do that. You don't want that to be your response. It's a waste of time, of energy. It doesn't solve anything. It never makes you more fulfilled. Let me ask you a question. You're stuck in traffic. You're driving. You start complaining about the traffic. That help you get there faster? You save a little bit of gas? I don't think so. You're at the airport and your flight's delayed or canceled. Blaming other people, get that plane to land and say, oh, all of a sudden we're on time. No. All it does is it takes you to a bad place. And like I said, it makes you unlikable. People don't want to be around you if you BCD. How about this? Next time you got caught in traffic, listen to some music that you have and say, man, I got to listen to that whole song. Something happens at the airport. Go buy a book. Listen to a podcast. Write a thank you letter to somebody. Make it a lifetime, not dead time. And I'm not saying to be like, just to be a robot and not have emotions. It's normal to get angry or be discouraged or frustrated. You just can't stay there. You have to move. Act, but don't act out. That's why we talk about the obstacle is the way. And for you people that are paying attention to what's going on in pop culture, that's why I put the Mandalorian there. People that are paying attention, they talk about the way of the Mandalore. This is the way. Well, in my opinion, the way of the warrior is that the obstacle is the way. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome, the Stoic emperor, philosopher emperor, one of the called the 5 great emperors, said that what's thrown in the fire makes the fire larger. You've been at camp or in your backyard and you have a bonfire and you throw something into it. That conflagration gets bigger and it just consumes it and it makes it burn brighter and hotter. That's how we have to handle the obstacles. We have to throw it into the fire and make it bigger. Because folks, obstacles are not going to unobstacle themselves. They're not going to go away. And what Ryan Holiday talks about in the book, The Obstacle is the Way, where we had a book club on in football, is you need to stop looking for angels and start looking for angles. You need to find ways to make yourself better and get this. And I was having a discussion with somebody I care about a couple nights ago, and there was a problem that they brought to me, and they were saying, what should you do in all this? And I said, well, you should do this, this, and this. And she said, well, that's not easy. I'm like, it's simple. I'm like, that's right. It's simple, but not easy, because working works. Working works. Everybody wants a magic bullet. They want to have some simple way to do. The simple way to do it is to work at it. It's simple, but it's not easy. And here's another thing we need to remember in this time, is that we're watching social media, we're looking at the news, and we're being told that it is hopeless, it is crazy, the world is out of control. Well, just because other people say it doesn't mean it's so. And don't get me wrong, I'm not minimizing the literally millions of deaths we've had from COVID-19, the joblessness, all the issues. Don't get me wrong, I'm not. But over 120 years, we've gone through 2 world wars, we've gone through another pandemic, we've gone through a depression, we've gone through a recession, we've gone through social upheaval. And by almost every metric, we have improved, we have gotten better. So just because they say it's hopeless or crazy, it doesn't mean it. You decide it. Going back to where we were at the beginning, perspective drives your performance. Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha. You might have heard him in finance. Very, very brilliant man. I love this quote. Be greedy when others are fearful. Be greedy when others are fearful. So right now, we have a world that is afraid, have obstacles all around us. This is time for us to be greedy. This is time for us to want to be a better student. How do I do that? How am I going to thank my future self going to thank me? Be a better athlete. I want to be greedy. Because the average response is to hunker down. And I'm not saying run outside with your mask off and all that, but find a way. Find, like we said, find those angles. So before we move on to the next part of this, is there any questions from what we talked about or what we did, or any input or anything that you would like to ask or go from there? Because like I said, it's been a blessing to start off with the first part of the webinar before we get into our workout.
Coach, thank you so much for that. I personally took some things away, and I'm sure many others here did as well if they were paying attention. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that was the first part. Now, I know for the football people and anybody else wants to stay, we're going to be doing a workout. I'm going to put the workout up on the screen, and I'm just going to say some of us coaches already did this today. So we're going to put that up.